Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for the Monday Q&As, so let's get to the first question. High altitude training masks are bullshit, right? Yeah, this is one hell of a bullshit scam, and not only is it a scam, it's going to reduce your performance. It's going to massively reduce the intensity level at which you can perform in the muscles. Now, the whole concept there is that it might increase red blood cell count, but even high altitude training has been massively overrated for this. And even in exercise science and training of athletes, oftentimes the high altitude training concept is mocked with train low and live high, because by living for extended periods of time at higher altitudes, that increases your red blood cell count. The short bit of training that you do while at high altitude isn't enough to keep red blood cell count elevated. You need to live at a higher altitude. But if you train at a lower altitude, you get better performance in the muscle. So really these masks take the worst of both worlds. So you're going to get less benefit out of these masks in general as if you didn't train with them, because they reduce intensity level at which you can train. It almost seems like blood flow restriction training taken to the next two moronic levels up higher. Yeah, they're complete bullshit. Next question. What do you think of planks if the goal is to strengthen the core, especially the rectus abdominis? As far as I know, planks primarily target the transverse abdominis. Therefore, most athletes recommend a variation of crunches to develop the visible part of the abdominal muscles. Well, you guys have seen what I do for my own core in at least one video that I've put up, and you guys see me doing weighted crunches, front planks, side planks, and stomach vacuums. Now, planks do work multiple muscles in the core, but they don't work all of it. But if you want to develop everything, you probably need to be doing something like all four of those lifts, just because you're dealing with a very large complex of muscles. And that's only if you want total development. But however, when I'm talking about total development, I'm not talking about aesthetics, I'm talking about performance. For aesthetics purposes, you may not want a great deal of development through your core, because it's going to make your core thicker, but that's another debate completely. But I do recommend both planks and crunches, and I'm not going to get into the debate today on crunches. I'm sorry, but all the people who have put out material saying crunches are bad for your back, the very piss poor done studies and data on that have been ripped apart by experts, and plenty of coaches and experts still continue to have their top level athletes do weighted crunches without injury. Alright, next question. Dear Jason, is it better to focus on good form but lift less weight, or is it better to let form falter a bit as a trade-off for being able to lift more weight? Which one yields better stimulation? Thanks. You shouldn't compromise either one, and this is the mistakes we see, is that people don't learn how to balance the two. I oftentimes see guys working on form excessively for months on end without really getting to where they're moving heavy weight, and therefore their progress stagnates because of this. You can only spend so much time getting your form right. If you don't have your form good enough to start progressing and ramping the weight up heavy within a couple of weeks, you're never going to get there. And you're just wasting time. But by that same token, if you just keep ramping weight so hard that your form looks terrible and breaks down continually, you also have a problem, because you're predisposing yourself to injury. You're not going to make as good of gains because you're not training in a way that's targeting things the way you want to target it for either performance or size. So overall, it's about finding the balance between the two. You always learn your form first, and then you start ramping weight, but you need to ramp progression in a way that's appropriate for you to maintain good form most of the time. And like on my novice program, when your form starts breaking down, that's when you do a reset. And when you can no longer complete reps with decent form, if the weight and the workloads that I'm having you do, then you reduce the weight 10% and start over. So it really is about balancing the two. You should always be ramping weight as hard as you can, particularly early on, while still maintaining good form. It doesn't have to be perfect form, just decent form. And I think people overemphasize this decent form, and I'm sorry, but when you start getting to really heavy weights, oftentimes what a lot of people consider textbook form will no longer work. You will not be able to maintain it no matter what. There's going to be some form breakdowns. There's going to be some things that are going to be pushed and pulled in ways that are not perfect. So, but it really is about finding the balance between the two rather than one versus the other. Alright guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.